I will be forever the myth.
You're the king of kings, man.
There's always a pecking order. The little packers never mess with the big packers. So I'm a rooster, and he's a chicken, so to speak.
All right, welcome back to the Bodybuilding Legends Podcast. I have a very special guest with us this week, Mr. Victor Terra. Victor was, I believe, one of the best physiques in the 1980s. He's a very underrated physique, and he won his class at the Mr. America back in 1985, and also won the NABBA Mr. Universe. So, Victor, welcome to the show. Really great to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
So, let's start at the beginning, Victor. Tell us where you were born, and then we'll get into like how you got into bodybuilding.
Okay. Well, in 1976, we immigrated from the Azores, Portugal, to the United States.
Okay.
I was just about to turn 12.
Okay.
And, we came to a town here in Massachusetts called Hudson. And it was primarily, kind of like where the Portuguese, all kind of immigrated.
Okay.
And that's where kind of everything kind of started for me.
Hudson, Massachusetts?
Massachusetts.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So what got you into working out and then into eventually competing in bodybuilding?
That's a great question, because most people think, it's just because, somebody wants to get bigger or whatever. For me, it was a little different. Coming to the United States at that time, and because the town was primarily 45% Portuguese, I think there was, it didn't have the ambiance of like inviting and community. Mm-hmm. So we were picked on a lot. Okay. And then basically in 8th grade I was like 95 pounds.
Yeah.
And that wasn't great. So that was kind of the situation. And as soon as I went to high school, I took up wrestling because I was always a soccer player. And we started doing a little bit of weight training, and I loved it. It was just one of those things where there was no team, it was just you and the weights, Yeah. And that kind of got me going, kind of excited into just wanted to build my body. And that's how it started.
So kind of from the wrestling and stuff, then you got into.
I think that was really the motivation, because, even with wrestling, I don't know if you ever wrestled, but, it's pretty intense training, getting ready for your matches and, in the off season and in season. And for me, it was never like a weight problem. A lot of these kids would be like overweight and have to lose weight and all that stuff was very dangerous. I was always underweight. So I wrestled 1 year and I made as an alternate to the States, and I was, maybe that's what I want to do. But I think the bodybuilding took over at one aspect of that year. And it was because I was working at the boys club, after school. Okay. And they're like, hey, the Mr. Worst is coming up. You really ripped up. Of course I was ripped up. I was 100 pounds. So I said, maybe, So anyway, so this one coach at the boys club said, hey, I'll teach you what to do. And so anyway, so I went to the Mr. Worcester. Okay. And 100 pounds wet.
Wow.
And I figured, that's one of the pictures that I sent you today. And that actually was my first meeting with Bob Gruskin.
Okay. How old were you at that show, Victor?
I was 15 and a half.
15 and a half. Wow.
15 and a half.
You were 100 pounds.
I was 100 pounds.
And how long have you been like weight training? I know you were in wrestling before.
6 months, 7 months.
Damn. Unbelievable. So
yeah.
you really good genetics for...
Exactly. So I think the genetics played a huge role, but at the same time, in Portugal, my dad was a stonemason, and I after school I'd go help him. He'd be like, okay, he's little, but he's strong, so we're gonna put a 50-pound, 100-pound bag of cement on his back, and he's got to carry it.
Wow.
So it was one of those things, where it kind of just led from one thing to another. We were a hardworking family, and my dad was like I said, a stone worker, a cement guy. So I was always entertained by that, how big his arms were and all that stuff. So that was always in the back of my mind. And you
were just telling me that when you were in Portugal, you guys didn't even have a television.
No, wow. not at all. We had a little radio, and we'd listen, to basically soccer games. that was our entertainment. And
Yeah.
and I always joked with my dad. I'm like, not having television, that's probably why you had 11 kids. Because there was nothing else
Right.
to do in the island.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and it, of course, coming here, it was really an opportunity to. You don't come into this country and not do well. You literally would have to be someone that doesn't care about expanding their horizons, right? And I loved the language. I literally went to summer school for 3 months, and then I had 4th grade in Portugal, and right away, they put me in 6th grade. So because I took up to the language really quick, and it was just something that I loved about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so I had the bilingual background, for those few years, and I worked at the boys' club, and at that time I was already thinking about, okay, I need a trade to keep the family going, because that's you do things for the family. We were all about family, right? And that's the reason why they had so many kids. So working at the boys' club and having this little bit of training and this kind of, he was kind of like a football player, but he kind of coached me through it, trained me a little bit, I remember my first experience with the nair, getting rid of the hair and all that stuff. That was an experience and a half.
Yeah.
Right. So of course I did it. And I'm on stage, and then it's like, I'm thinking, his comment to me was like, never look down at the crowd, always look up. So I'd be looking up,
Yeah.
and there was in the Mr. Worcester, there was probably 20, 30 individuals. Right. So,
In the teenage? 20 or 30 in the teenage?
And no, it was actually the
This was Mr. Worcester.
I just entered the Mr. Worcester. I didn't know what I was doing. Because there was no Teenage Mr. Worcester at the time. And so I, of course I didn't place, right? So I'm sitting there after the competition, and this short guy, with a little black cigar, he's coming over and gets my attention, right? It's Bob, and he's like, well, can I take a picture of you? I said, I didn't win. He goes, but you will. That was kind of how Bob was, And he got talking to me, he goes, is your family here and this and that? I said, no. I said, I just have a girlfriend. I said, she came with me. I said, my family doesn't believe in this. I just did this because of the boys' club. I told him the whole story.
Yeah.
And he said, you have great genetics. I said, I do. I said, okay, that sounds great. He goes, well, and this is no lie. He says, do you want to be a champion? That's what he said to me. And I said, gee, I don't feel like this is for me, right? I mean, he's supposed to go up there and he's not just supposed to win or at least place, get a trophy. He goes, well, yeah, but but you'll win a lot of trophies in the future. That's how he was. Very, very clear, with his messaging. And I said, well, I don't know if my parents are going to let me do this, anymore. I'm supposed to go to work and make money for the family,
Mm-hmm.
He goes, oh, no, I'll talk to your parents and this and that. He goes, here's my card, give me a call sometime. And the funny thing is, I didn't see him until 6 months later again, right? But I did call him. And he said, well, I'm going to send you in the mail, a little nutrition schedule, how to train, that kind of stuff, a little routine, right? And I faithfully did it for 6 months, right?
Okay.
So now I come into the Teenage Mr. Massachusetts, and of course now I'm just turned 16. And
what year is this? What year is this?
This was 1981.
Okay.
81. And guess who winds up winning? So I win the short class. Mike Quinn wins, I think, the medium class.
Okay.
And the guy he was humongous, right? 19 years old. He's just like boom, I'm like, whoa, I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So that's what I want to be, right? I want to be that big.
Yeah.
And of course, Mike goes on to better things. And
that was the year he won the Teenage America, right? 81.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I trained really hard for the next couple of years. And the following year, and I met Bob there again, and Bob's like, hey, you filled out a little bit, now I'm like, 125, 127, 30, 130 pounds. And, but I was chiseled, right? So it's like, okay, you look bigger when you're chiseled. He's like, I need you to put a little bit more weight on, I need you to eat more red meat. It's just kind of like, basics, right? But what he found out about me, which is something that still is ongoing with my business, and I'm kind of a sponge. So if you say, I need you to do this, this, and this, because it's going to equate to this, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right? So he knew this about me really early on. So he'd send me the nutrition schedule, the training program, and of course, I would just do it. Well, he comes into it was the winter, and it was the Mr. Bay State. I happened to enter the Teenage Bay State and the Mr. Bay State, and I wound up winning most muscular, overall, class winner, both on teenage and men's.
And open. Wow.
and open. Yeah. All right. So Bob's like, okay, you're going to take this seriously now? He goes, you've won a lot of trophies. And I remember at the time we had this station wagon. And I remember being in the back. My dad came, my mom came. And I'm basically like surrounded by trophies everywhere, right?
Because they had the body too back then, right?
It was just like, okay, I love America because this is great, right?
right.
And
what did you weigh for that one, Victor?
What's that?
What did you weigh for that one?
I was literally 145.
Wow.
145.
And how old were you at that one?
Say that again. I was. I just had turned 17.
Damn. So 17, you win Teenage Mr. Bay State and Mr. Bay State.
Yeah.
That's
and then so then me and Bob then started working together a lot closer. And the best part was I didn't have my license yet. I got my license at 17 and a half. And my mom, no lie, my mom was the best thing. She drove me to Bob's, every Friday night. She did this until I got my license, a good 6 months. Mm-hmm. She'd drive to the Bronx, drive back to Massachusetts, pick me up on a Sunday. And Bob was very adamant about learning, right? He knew I was a sponge. He's like, I want you to learn because you're going to be able to do more things than just bodybuilding. There's going to be an expansion in your life and you won't understand it now, but he goes, but I guarantee you, you're probably not going to do bodybuilding for a very long time. And actually this came to be out true in some, I wouldn't say the road wasn't always a straight path. Yeah. But he's like, you're going to have crossroads. He goes, but you're going to end up doing something that bodybuilding is going to create for you. Just be open-minded when it happens. So I'm thinking, okay, this guy could just be filling my head full of BS, or maybe see something that I don't see, right? Yeah. So he goes, are you willing to train hard for the next year? I said, yeah. I said, what are we going to do? He said, we're going to go try to win the Teenage America. So I said, wow, chief, Teenage America. Well, so I trained really hard for it. I wound up winning the Teenage America, and then a week later winning the Teenage USA NPC, which I think it's a record that still stands today. It's never been done at 18 years old. Yeah. I think I'm the youngest ever to do it. And I was 159 pounds, but I just looked that much bigger, right? Yeah. It was just the illusion of being 5'5", and I never understood until kind of later, the true makeup of genetically, how did I look much different than the guy that's 6 feet? And Bob's explanation was like, try to understand how your muscles are made up. You have your bone structure, but you have these long, full bellies. So in a picture, you look like a 6 foot guy. Yeah. You don't look like a 5'5" guy. You don't look dwarfish. You don't look, you don't have none of those looks to you. Right. And he goes, we can really fill that, that physique out, and you should be able to be around 200 pounds, if you ever turn pro. That was kind of like his science. Yeah. And how tall? No, I owe everything to Bob. He was not only a father figure. Yeah. He was a great coach, right? It tried to lead us in a great path,
Yeah.
You couldn't have. I've been fortunate enough, honestly, to have three fathers, and he was one of them. My father, my biological father, and then Brian Robinson, which became my best man in England. Okay. Unbelievable people. You can't say enough. The people that guide you, love you, and and literally wanted the best for you. And and to me, that gave me not only hope, but it gave me the drive to want. It wasn't really to impress them, but to have them kind of like, hey, he cares about me too, right? Mm-hmm. So I was not afraid to show any affection for Bob or Brian or my own dad. And I just felt that when somebody goes out there and really helps you, truly helps you because they want to, I just thought that was meaningful, and that still carries on to this day. And of course we all know that Bob passed away, and and that was tough to take, because we had I had a really close relationship with him. He was at my wedding. It's even to this day, I still can't believe that it went the way it went.
Right.
It was, we can all tell stories about Bob, he was just the greatest. And we can't say enough about him.
Yeah. When he passed away a couple of years ago, I did a tribute show. I had John DeFendis and a couple other guys other guys that he helped. And it's amazing, and
I think they all say the same thing. I think they truly thought he was their dad. The guy cared. And he put not only a lot of his time, but his finances. He was invested. He was invested in all of us, and
nothing in return, really. He wasn't getting He wasn't a coach. He wasn't like these guys are today.
No. I remember after winning the amateur universe, I said, okay, Bob, we have to have a contract. We have to, this is not fair. You always give. We got to give back. He's like, okay, maybe, he goes, you give a lot back, caring, being a good human being, being a great citizen. He goes, that's very important. And that's how he was. He didn't want anything back. He just, but I eventually actually forced them into having a contract with me. I'm like, Bob, we sell pictures. I want you to make, what do you think? What do you want? What do you want? He's like, okay, 15%. I'm like, that's it? I like 15% for all you do?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah. He didn't care. It was he was just entertaining,
just happy.
What I was feeling, he was just that kind of guy, right?
So not only did he help people with their preparation, but he also got them publicity because he'd take pictures of them and send it to all the magazines. And
absolutely,
he was going out of his way to publicize all these young guys, all these teenagers.
Yeah, all my stories in the magazines and stuff, including my background, everything else. He just was a stickler. He would do it. He would do it correctly. And he always wanted to have that you came across the right way. Okay. He wanted to express through his writing, through his pictures. He wanted the expression to be real. And I thought, that's very genuine. Cause we all meet guys, taking pictures of you. And when I'm going to do a story on you, whatever. But are you really? Yeah. He just was that kind of guy. And, going back a little bit to the Teenage America.
Yeah.
I wasn't a citizen at the time. And
really?
I wasn't a citizen. And I literally became a citizen a week before. Right. Wow. And Bob's like, you're not a citizen. He goes, you never told me that. He goes, you got to get it done. We got it done. And, the rest is history, obviously, because, it was incredible, at the time, Cliff Sawyer was still kind of the head guy, for the AAU and all that stuff, these are just names of people that also helped you along the way, really decent people in the sport, Yeah. In today's world, you don't find people like that anymore. You know what I mean? It's, I feel I feel bad for the kids coming on to the sport. They're a little misguided, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to have the guidance really early on. And I tell this to my clients, and I tell this to anyone I meet. And if they ever ask me, how'd you become Mr. Universe and all this stuff? And I always say, you know what? It's a little bit having the right person behind you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like a great marriage, having, the backbone of your wife. It's the same thing. He was just amazing. And, he's believe me, he's missed. He's missed because he's done a lot of great things in the world for a lot of kids, and a lot of individuals that wind up, doing really well. Mike and Torino, obviously Jeff King, Jerry Scalisi, right? All these guys were, legitimate, really good bodybuilders, but good people, and he surrounded himself around people, that not only cared about him, but he knew they were going to be good human beings. There was a good team there. I love Matt. I never had any tension with any of these guys. Who cares if you won the Pro Universe and somebody else won the amateur? It was all about Bob, and it was all about family,
Yeah.
And we could do a million stories about going to his house, on people's things sometimes.
The basement, right?
He was unbelievable. So a quick little story with Bob was my first time going to his house. I'm like, oh, this is a little dusty in here, and that's how he was. He just had everything stacked everywhere, and it was just the way it was. And he's like, okay, this is the kitchen, this is the bedroom. Okay, downstairs we do the posing and this and that, whatever. And I'm like, okay, Bob, okay. He goes, see this refrigerator? He goes, this is my side. This is your side. So for years we always joked about it. I said, Bob, on your side you had bagels, this, that. On my side there was there was nothing.
Right.
He goes, and it's gonna stay that way. That's how he was. He was great. And
what did Bob do for a living?
What's that?
What did Bob do for a living? Was he a teacher?
Bob was yes, he was a professor.
Okay.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, with his school stuff was kind of interesting. For 3 years, it was good 3 years, maybe 3 to 4 years, between 17 and when my mom started taking me to the Bronx. He was a stickler for knowledge, and because he knew I was a sponge, he's like, okay, every week I'm going to send you home with homework. I'm like, holy cow, homework! I got to go back home and do my homework from high school.
Right.
He goes, no. This is going to be, because it's going to be tested next week. It'll be on nutrition, physiology.
Really? Wow.
He was like, he knew I wanted to learn. I always wanted to learn. I wanted to, So over time, we designed all kinds of different programs, me and him, and I said, Bob, I think I invented a new one. He goes, what is it? I said, I call it the 100 system. He goes, the hundreds? He goes, people do 100 reps. I said, no, but they don't do it like I do, right? So he goes, okay, explain to me what that 100 system is. I say, Bob, okay. I said, I take the heaviest weight I can handle, and I got to be able to do at least 15 to 25 reps.
Okay.
Whatever. If I get 25, okay, 25 from 100 is 75. I can rest 75 seconds, and then I gotta crank out more. And
with
that's
the same weight.
With the same weight.
Okay.
Right? He goes, wow. He goes, how do you do it? Interesting enough, over time with training, and me and him was, we were kind of considering, okay, how do we break barriers, pain barriers? In today's world, these guys are taking stuff like, oh, let's take some Advil. I'm like, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
No, it was pain. You break that barrier and you go for some more pain. That's the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And the 100 system actually got me there. And I used to do the 100 system for the last month before each competition.
Wow.
That was what I did. And I remember like the times that there was only 3 times in my career where I really wasn't ready. And he knew I wasn't. And he would tell me honestly, he goes, you're not ready. I said, okay, what do we do? He goes, lose the girlfriend. That was always his thing, right? I said, how do you know? He goes, I know. Lose the girlfriend. And it was 3 times, 3 different girlfriends. And those were the 3 times in my career that I either came in second or third or not even, as well, right?
Wow.
And he goes, you're going to learn, right? This was your 3rd time. You're going to learn. I said, okay, Bob, I'm learning. That's for sure. I'm learning.
Yeah.
So that's how he was, and it was such a learning experience, and I think it made me, not only the knowledge that I gained through Bob, all the testing, every other weekend, he'd test me on stuff, and I've used that knowledge with my work, and over time I've developed it's a kind of one-stop shop. I do my own holistic physical therapy. I do my own type of massage. I do my own type of chiropractic.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So it was literally, and he was like, he goes, I always told you, you're going to become somebody different, and you were going to change, and it was going to be for the better. You're going to help a lot of people. And so 25 years ago, it's actually 27 years ago, after retirement, I went and worked for a private country club in the area.
Okay.
And it actually changed my whole world. Not only that, I had to understand that kind of world, unlimited funds, people like, oh, $125. It's nothing. Sure.
Yeah.
And because it was a golf community, I took up golf, and I made a lot of friends. These clients became kind of like, like an extension of your family, right? And I used to tell Bob all the time. I said, Bob, I'm getting a little bored. I'm just training golfers and tennis players. He goes, be creative, think through it. So I always had a chiropractor. I always had a massage therapist. I just thought that was part of my regimen to stay flexible, because I never wanted to be kind of muscle bound. I didn't like that word,
Yeah.
And so I started, okay, my massage therapist, trying to understand, feel what she was doing and this and that. So I took the concept of Rolfing and Feldenkrais method, and neuromuscular, and I created my own technique. So, and I've been doing this for 25 years.
Wow. Okay.
And around the same time, my chiropractor was more of a holistic chiropractor. Really believed in the foundation, believed in, in the metatarsals and heels locking up. And he believed from the ground up. And most chiropractors are spine guys, right? Crack your neck, crack your back, this and that. And me and him over the years, we kind of developed, a relationship where he was actually teaching me kind of the holistic view of chiropractic.
Okay.
And it was literally always starting from the ground up, watch somebody walk. Are their mechanics, well? Do they pronate? If they do pronate, is it because it's a collapsed metatarsal? Is it a locked heel? So I'm able to like literally adjust the metatarsal, adjust a heel, ankle, hips. It's much, much different than a normal chiropractic. And that's when I put it all together, and that's kind of like my business. So
you went to chiropractic school and became a chiropractor?
No.
Okay.
This was all self-taught.
Okay.
And that was something that Bob, was like, he's like, be different. That was his biggest thing. Be different, create your own techniques, because you can take certain certifications. He goes, but at the same time, you're going to be like everybody else. So, and what happened was, it was kind of interesting. My clients would come to me and be like, I went to this chiropractic and my neck, was a little pinchy, this and that. So I created a different neck adjustment. And I just thought, okay, by, not only by reading and, watching videos and all this stuff, I figured, okay, if normally they like to rotate the head in a funny way, right? So it can pinch, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a tilt, So I decided that maybe if it's face down and the head is locked, I can literally just rotate it a little. It's limited range of motion, and nobody's going to, stress out about it. And guess what? It worked like a charm. And to this day, that's the only way I do a neck adjustment.
Yeah.
And there's literally no stress. People don't feel like they have to be, cautious,
Yeah, they tense up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I use my massage therapy style to prep the system for the adjustment compared to, you normally go to a chiropractor in the office, he's got 2 or 3 people going, it's like crack, 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 and see you later, right? So I do a full hour program, and it's, so much massaging, so much stretching. Then I finish with the adjustments.
Okay.
So the person walks out, it's like, okay, done, feel good, So that all stemmed from, Bob's work, having me believe that, you could become somebody more than just a bodybuilder. And that was really, but he's like, bodybuilding is going to give you a lot of knowledge, and use that knowledge to get you there. And that was kind of like how it went. And, from the Teenage America, then at the time, then I went to the Mr. America. Well, I won the Junior America the following year. And then I think that same.
Can I ask you about your training, Victor? Like, what were you doing? From when you started off, you're like 100 pounds, and then you built your up through the teenage ranks. What was your training routine like? Did Bob help you with that? Yeah.
It was. We tried different types, and we wanted to see what worked best. And for me, it was literally 3 on, 1 day off that worked best for me.
Okay.
And then it was always push pull. That was really the routine.
Okay.
And he knew I was strong, and he's like, I want you to go as heavy as possible. I never want you to go under 4 reps, and I never want you to go above 12 reps.
Okay.
And I just packed the muscle on. And the one thing that I think, even with good genes, this, you can train him properly and literally change your makeup a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
And his biggest thing was, you have long bellies, so I want you to make sure you do everything full range of motion. I want you to do everything controlled and slow and so on. I mean, you go to the gyms, you see these guys, just moving weight around like it's, a sack of potatoes. But he was very, very adamant about training smartly, slow, controlled.
Okay.
Because his biggest thing was, what he installed in my own mind was, in the future, and this actually became very true, because I'm a very injury prevention kind of guy. So if I have a client, that's the first thing I start talking about. Okay, how do we prevent injuries? How do we get the most out of your program? But we're not gonna take chances of you getting injured.
Yeah.
And he was, and honestly, throughout my career, I think the only actually pull that I ever had, which was an interesting, I was actually training for the Junior America, and it was 4 weeks prior, and it just happened to be, at a time where it's just, I was doing leg curls and, lying down leg curl machine. It was near the door, and it must have been a cool draft or something. And, I just, you got the inner heat, and then all of a sudden, I came up, and I was just resting between sets, and it must have been just the cold air. And then I got on the machine, and all of a sudden, pop, right?
Mm.
I'm like, oh man, this is like, So right away on the phone, Bob, this has happened, this and that. He's like, can you walk? He goes, I said, not really. So anyway, so one of the guys in the gym drove me home, black and blue, the whole works.
Oh, you pulled it, really tore it.
I pulled it pretty good.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I need you to get DMSO. I need you to get
DMSO.
It was unbelievable, right? And no lie, I mean, the guy was legit, right? Within a week, like literally 7 days, I was training light again.
Yeah. Wow.
It was amazing. I mean, he's like, ice every 2 hours. It was like, I just did it faithfully, right? Don't stretch. He was so ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Because in today's world, it'd be like, oh, it feels better to stretch, but you're doing more damage, right?
Yeah.
He's like, don't stretch, don't exercise, you do nothing. I want you to eat a lot of protein. I want you to drink your water. He was just like step by step, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? I went up winning the Junior America, and there was no sign of atrophy. There was no sign of any issue with that hammy.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm like, wow. And at that time, I became a bigger believer that this guy not only has your back, but he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Because injuries, within these kind of injuries, it can be literally, I mean,
Yeah, that could be.
It could be the end of your career, or it could be even just like, okay, you're not going to compete for a year.
Yeah.
So I went to the juniors. At the time, I was also doing couples. We came in second, I think, at the time.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, we doing couples. And then I went to the America, and that was the year that Mike and Torino won.
Oh yeah, 85.
So
when you were building your physique, Victor, did you have any body parts that were lagging, or did you have the kind of genetics where everything just kind of grew?
Do you know, interesting enough, even though I was a soccer player, you think my calves would be like humongous.
Yeah.
And no, that was my weak point.
Calves.
And Bob was like, okay, we got to figure out how do we get your calves up. He goes, you might not relate to heavy weight. It might have to be high reps.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually turned out to be, it was a combination. It was heavy and then followed right away to like really flush a lot of blood, high reps, lightweight.
Oh, okay.
And that's what seemed to have worked. And he, at the time, he goes, well, maybe you should do, some massaging on the calf and this and that. At the time, I was just getting into that kind of, and there was a holistic guy here in Marlboro. And this guy wasn't, you know how we have cupping today?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, his form of cupping was, hitting a calf like, I mean, my calves were so black and blue from him cupping like that.
What was he hitting it with?
Hand. like that, just like, he would destroy my calves. He goes, they're gonna grow. God. I'm like, it was probably BS, but but he goes, we're gonna purify these calves. We're gonna, I'm like, okay,
force the blood in there.
No, exactly. So I told Bob, he goes, okay, maybe that works, but maybe just keep doing more sets, more reps, So of course, eventually things kind of evened out, and I think one of the strongest messages in terms of staying balanced, with all your muscle groups was he was a stickler for do not favor one exercise, do not favor one muscle group. That was one of the first few lessons he gave me.
Okay.
And that stuck. And so he's like, okay, big muscle groups, you do 12 sets. Okay, small muscle groups, you do 8 sets. And I just would do it, right? Yeah. I would not change. And I trained everything very equal, even though, weaknesses, sometimes those muscle groups, they're more painful, whatever. He goes, you got to get through those pain barriers. You got to do it. Yeah. And I brought everything up to spec, where it's like, okay, I'm at the pro universe. And that was, after putting that much mass, I still was very balanced. And I found, okay, how do things change? I thought maybe I was going to be a little distorted, right? And his biggest thing was, I want you to go by your waist, which was kind of interesting, right? Yeah. My waist was always 28 inches. So he's like, you keep it at 28 inches, just keep getting broader. I'm like,
you keep adding more size and keep
exactly. Just keep getting wider. Just keep getting wider. Wow. And one of my heroes, was Franco Colombo, and I always thought, he's got those serious wings, that thick chest, Yeah. And, I think he had like a 52-inch chest or something. And I got mine eventually to about 54. Wow. And that was, that was my biggest, and I just looked freaky, and it was, and then of course it made the waist look even smaller, right? So I had that illusion of, of being so much bigger. And when I won the pro universe, Richard Roy, I don't know if you know him, but
sure, yeah.
I mean, he was these are good tall guys, these were big dudes, Yeah, yeah. There was another guy there too. He was an NPC guy that came over, Dalton,
Marlon Dalton.
Marlon, yeah. Right? Humongous, right? Yeah. So I got all these guys in the pro, and I'm like, oh man, hey guys, I'm gonna get blown out. And then when I saw pictures, I'm like, whoa, I'm just a stick. I just happen to be more aesthetic. Yeah. And it was one of those things where, I was never a believer of changing things from what Bob would present, right? Mm-hmm. I always trusted him. and trust is so important in a coach, right?
Yeah.
And I knew he had my back, and I just trusted completely. I did, I followed the nutrition, I followed everything he said, So he made a difference. He made a huge difference, not only from the beginning to end, but even on the path beyond bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And I think that's you have to admire the guy that he was just
absolutely. He changed so many lives.
He was just he was just a different person. He was truly there for you. And, so we had incredible short career. I mean, because when I retired, which was not willingly, but certain things happen, and sometimes is it somebody telling you something? Get the hell out! You've made it. Bob was super happy. That was his first Pro Universe winner.
Oh, really? You were the first one. Okay.
Yeah. So Bob was like, wow. He's like, we've done it. You want to continue doing this? So in 1990, I really believed I had won the Pro Universe, and I came second to Charles Claremont. But Charles had won it 3 years in a row, and I knew there was going to be a little bit of the politics, Yeah. And me and Charles were actually very friendly. He goes, hey, he goes, how these things go. So I understood, right? And he just wasn't as balanced as I was. I was just as thick as him, and I was just in the same shape as he was. And but I said, okay, come back next year and win it. So I came back next year, won it, and then in '92, I went against Kawak, and I came in third, and that was the year that I came in sick. And Bob's like, dude, you're gonna have to take some antibiotics. You have a sinus infection. You're not feeling great. It's probably gonna
hold water.
It's gonna probably hold a little water, and hey, the hope is that maybe because of your shape, you'll still, But I got so smooth from it that luckily my shape did, at least gave me third place. And after that, of course, there was, some stuff going on, with, the drug issues and all that stuff. And I had an unlucky break, and I said, you know what, maybe this is the time to just move on, because things were at that time, 92, 93, there was a lot of stuff going on, where, these, guys were just like, hey, just doing their stuff. Right. And unfortunately, all it takes is one person. Oh, I got it from him or whatever, it's, and that's all it was, at the time, the word conspiracy was huge. Right. And unfortunately, you do what you have to do to protect your family, and to, protect your good name, and, you move on and, go from there. But, I was just coming into my peak.
How old were you then?
27.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at the guys now, like Adi, Tupan, and all these guys, right?
Yeah.
These guys are coming into their 30s, right? And they're just making it, now, Yeah. But, it was, I honestly can say, things will happen for a reason.
Yeah.
I can say, knock on wood, I have my health. I have a great wife. I have, 2 beautiful kids. They're older now, but I think time goes on, right? I just turned 60. And I feel like, hey, you know what? Be proud of what you've done, right?
Yeah.
And
Matt Dufresne said the same thing.
Yeah. It's just one of those things, where sometimes there's more out there, and you got to be willing. That was Bob's message. He goes, keep a good ear, really, watch out for what's coming down the road, and be prepared. And I thought that was okay. That was a not only great tutelage, but it was him basically saying, look, things will change. You are going to get older. And be prepared for that new path, and I think I listened, and I think I instead of fighting it and saying I got to go back, I got to win it 5 times, Okay, great, it's nice, but I just never was that kind of guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
and I love my work, and I love helping people, and I love seeing results, and I do a lot of Parkinson's work, and I do a lot of MS work.
Oh, great.
So it's very satisfying work,
Yeah.
But bodybuilding got me there. Without bodybuilding, without coming to the United States, I would never have had, those opportunities. And I think that's the beauty of the United States, of like, if you really want to do something, and if you have the heart and if you have the desire, I think you can accomplish it here. This is the country that you can accomplish things. You can make dreams happen here, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what happened, And
how lucky you were to meet a guy like Bob.
You know what?
A mentor like that, not only helped with your bodybuilding, but your whole life. He was wise enough to give you life advice,
Exactly. John, every day I count my blessings that a guy like that coming into your life and literally making a difference. There's not enough money in the world to pay for that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's something that I'll always, I'll take to my grave with me. It's just something that you can't, and you hear it the same from Matt, and you hear it from Jeff, they love the guy. The guy was there for them. He was the dad, right? He cared, so.
Yeah.
But, it's been a very interesting path, from Bob to where I am now, and and all the different things that happen through your life. And, you turn 60, you start thinking, okay, how many more years do you have, right? What kind of health do you have, and all that stuff. And I think things happened for the right reason. And you can't be scared of what the future holds for you, And Bob was instrumental into that belief, that be open-minded. And just, one little story about California. I remember when I won the Teenage American, Teenage USA, and we had to go to California and do some photo shoots. And I remember him taking me to Gold's Gym, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. He goes, it's gonna be a little different out there, okay? Just so you understand. So, but it's all he said to me, right? On the flight, he didn't say explain anything, right? It's just. Yeah. I said, okay, Bob, okay. So I'm not thinking anything. So we go in there, we go into the locker room, and I remember sitting on the bench, and it looked like flour to me. There's a little flour. Like, I don't know. I'm like maybe somebody's making bread. I don't know, So anyway, so then my photo shoots and all that stuff. You come back when the plane back, and he always knew when I was thinking, right? And he's like, Victor, something's bothering you. I said, no. He goes, no, you want to tell me something. I said, well, okay, maybe I do. So I said, Bob, when I sat on that bench, there was all this powder. Was that foot powder? What was that? He goes, probably not foot powder. Right? And I didn't know what he was talking about, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, sometimes these guys, so they don't feel pain. They do some of these crazy things. He goes, but I don't want you ever to do that. So he goes, you do no cocaine. I don't want tattoos. I don't want earrings. That's how he was, right?
Yeah.
We just had a lot of fun with a lot of these. These are just like life lessons, right? He's preparing you for the world, right?
This was in the early 80s, right?
I'm 18 years old, right?
Yeah.
And so when we went, me, Jerry Scalisi, and Bob, we went to Guadalupe for the Worlds, and we're ready. We're both ready. Me and Jerry. Well, Bob forgot to tell us, do not eat the fruit, right? Mm-hmm. Oh man, if you ever talk to Jerry about it, we were like in and out of the bathroom, in and out of the bathroom, in and out of the bathroom. God. Bob's like, oh, Bob already knew. He goes, these guys are done. So anyway, we placed, but we didn't do well, right?
Yeah.
So on the way back, it was kind of a, pretty, not a great flight, right? It was bumpy,
Yeah.
So Bob being Bob, and Jerry's the worst. You know, Bob was like snoring. He's next to me snoring. I'm like hanging on to my dear life. I hate flying, right?
Yeah.
He wakes up. He goes, "What's wrong with you? You're sweating." I'm like, "Yeah, the plane's been going up and down all for like the last hour." He goes, "Oh, I didn't feel it." I'm like, "Bob, I know you didn't feel it. You were sleeping." There's Jerry next to him, same thing, out. You know, that's how he was. Jerry and him were like, these guys could sleep standing up. And no lie, we took the train from London. I forget where we were going in England. And he's holding on, standing, right? And I'm sitting, I'm watching them. And all of a sudden, I start seeing the head going like this. and he starts snoring.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God, standing up.
There's no way you could be standing, holding on, and snoring. It's impossible, right? And Bob's sitting over there. He's like, "Yep, he's sleeping." Jerry was unbelievable. He was I don't know if you know Jerry Scalise, but he was a very, very likable.
He was on our tribute show for Bob.
Oh yeah, he's very likable guy. He was a funny dude. We had some great times. But
I want to go back and talk about some of your shows because you did some amazing contests. Now, when you did that teenage Bay State and you won the Open Bay State, and you were at 17.
That was 17, yeah.
Yeah. Did you think after that, like, wow, I could really do something in bodybuilding? Because you win at 17 years old, you win the teenage and the Open.
I think that probably was the turning point where you know I really believed not only in Bob's work, but I believed in myself, you know, that maybe I had something special and that maybe I could even do more. Right.
Okay.
And from that's when the conversation me and Bob started about the Teenage America.
Okay.
You know, we started kind of focusing, you know, and, you know, I graduated in May, you know, and I was going to go to Northeastern to college, you know, and in September, and Bob's like, "Hey, you know, let's just hold off. Let's see what happens with the Teenage America." You know, I said, "Okay." You know, I said, "Look, I got a large family. I got to help my family." You know, he goes, "Oh, you'll help them out. You know, you'll be fine." And what was driving me all that time, you know, John, honestly, yeah, it's great to have a coach like Bob and all that stuff, but it was always the drive of, I always wanted to buy my parents a house. You know, when I came to the United States, that was what drove me. And with my winnings from the universe, that actually gave me the ability to do that.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. And I always said to Bob, I said, you know, we're a great team. And if it wasn't for you, you know, I would never have been able to have done what I'm doing and be able to have bought a house for my parents. And of course, you know, he was, you know, he always had a little tear, you know.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, I think that was the turning point. I really believe that that just the discipline grew even greater at that point. You know, at that point, I just anything. I would not let anything distract me.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
The blinders came on, and it was okay. Now I had that goal. Okay, maybe I can win. Maybe then I can make money. Maybe then I can buy my parents a house.
Okay.
I was driven by that, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, some kids, that's just a love with the sport, right?
Yeah.
My path was a little different, you know. There was maybe a little bit extra meaning behind it, right?
You wanted to pay off somehow.
Yeah. And then as time went on, you know.
Were you thinking Mr. America at that point, or just Teenage Mr. America?
At that time, it was just Teenage America. America at that time, you know. Bob wasn't. We always spoke about, you know, setting goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
You weren't, you know, we set, you know, I'd set my daily goals, my weekly, monthly, yearly, and he was good with that. You know, he knew that my brain worked a certain way, and he knew that I kept track of that, right? Mm-hmm. So I had those little goals. Okay, well, so if I'm 140 now, I'm going to be at 145, you know, and I'm going to be more defined and all this. It was just the way it was. Yeah. And my brain always worked in that kind of concept. And he just he was kind of like it was almost like he was not only just the father, they're always making sure that you didn't make a mistake, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he always had the right answers. That was what I always found. Like, he's never wrong. Why is he always right? But I never questioned him.
You believe?
Never questioned him.
Yeah.
There was one time where I wanted to, and I felt that year, it was actually 86, and I came in, I think I came in second in my first time in the amateur universe to Larry Bernstein.
Okay.
And even then I still felt, Larry, okay, he was a little more defined, but I had better shape, I was just as thick as him, whatever, but at that time, Bob's like, okay, you're not there. But I really didn't understand. It was actually my first time taking diuretics. And it probably flattened me out a little bit. Maybe my system didn't agree with it.
Yeah.
Or maybe I took too much, whatever. And it just didn't work. And because I used to always use this method, and I remember for the Junior America, Bob's like, okay, no pizza, no nothing. Tomorrow we're doing a photo shoot for a couple hours. You got to be in shape. So I said, Bob, can I just have a slice of pizza? I'm like, what can that do? He goes, oh, okay, fine. So, and it was my first glass of wine that I had that Bob let me have. Right? Glass of white wine, slice of pizza, salt, diuretic. Next day I was shredded. And when I got the cover on the muscular development, and it was the shot, and Bob was like, what did you do? Did you do a lot of diuretics? I said, no, I just had the wine, I had the pizza.
Yeah.
He goes, wow, that worked. So anyway, at that universe, I'm like, why don't I just do the same kind of thing? Because it worked before. But I think he was really concerned because it was a heavy class that year. And he was trying to get me ready, and I just think because I had never done it, I think I just didn't. It didn't agree with me. Maybe it was the dosaging or whatever. It wasn't. But I said, you know what, you learn from it, and then after that, we just kind of because my system, even to this day, I could take a multivitamin, whatever. I react very, very quickly to things. Okay. Very sensitive system in that way. Yeah. And so we kind of watched it after that, because it was, the Teenage America to the Junior America to the Mr. America. And then there was a year there that I went after the universe, when I didn't do well that first time. I actually decided to go to the NPC in 87.
Yeah.
And
if I could go back, let me ask you about before you pass it. Let me ask you about that Teenage America. So that was the year you graduated high school.
Yeah, 1983.
Okay. And where was it at? Do you remember?
That was that was in Georgia.
In Georgia. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was AAU. Now the
NPC, that was AAU, and then I think the week after was the NPC
USA.
And you know who won the men's that year?
Ernie Santiago.
Yeah, exactly. And we were very very. I'm like, they were like talking like the people talking. He goes, that teenager might be able to beat Ernie Santiago,
right?
Because we had very similar defined bodies at that time, that era. And
well, Chris Aceto told me that Ernie didn't want to take a picture with you because you were better than him.
Yeah. When we were on stage, I remember that. I'm like, wow, why was he so sensitive about taking a picture? Now I understand, right?
Right. So the Teenage America, that was AAU, and I'm looking at the list here. So Steve Sanka was from my gym in Chicago.
No, really?
Yeah, he was a good teenager.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that was actually, if you look at the lineup, actually, I think all three classes were. It was good. It was a good year.
Yeah. Van Walcott Smith got third.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And then in the medium class, now I did the Teenage America when it was in Chicago the year before, in 82, and Jim Cameron, not the director, but Jim Cameron, the bodybuilder. Yeah. He was second to David Hawk. I remember he had good symmetry.
Oh, wow, David Hawk. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Jim Cameron won the medium class. And then John LaRue, another Chicago guy, huge guy,
Yes.
He won the medium tall, and Arthur Prince, who is from the Massachusetts area, right?
Massachusetts, yeah.
He won the tall class. So yeah, a stacked lineup, a lot of great competition.
You know, the funny thing is, Arthur Prince, Teddy Lopes, Mike Quinn. These are all guys that that I competed against in the Massachusetts and the Bay State. Yeah, it was pretty hefty competition then.
Yeah. And were you 18 then, Victor?
I had just turned 18.
Okay.
Yeah.